The broadcast is now starting.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to thank you for joining us for the CCLC BoardDocs case study. Today we'll be speaking with Cabrillo Community College District as well as Kern Community College District. So we have a panel today. We'll be introducing them in just a moment. Just a few webinar announcements for those of you who are joining us today. Webinar will last approximately 45 minutes. Please mute all your lines. Please send your questions into the Q&A box and we will address those during or at the end as time allots, and the session will be recorded and it will be shared after the webinar has concluded. So feel free to share this with anyone, or if you're not able to stay the whole time, you're able to at least listen in at a later time as well. And again, the link to the recording and the slides will be emailed after the webinar. Well, wonderful. My name's Tom Duncan. I will be moderating today for BoardDocs, and I have the pleasure of being joined by Tatiana Bacheretz, the confidential executive assistant to the VP and Administrative Services at Cabrillo Community College District. Tatiana, it's a pleasure to have you today.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone.
Great. And we also have for, I believe, our second or third webinar now, Danielle Hillard, who's our the executive assistant at the Chancellor's Office and Board of Trustees at Kern Community College District. Danielle, it's fantastic to have you back.
Good morning. Thank you for having me back again.
Appreciate it. Well, wonderful. Well, today we're going to go through this panel discussion today. So we're going to start off by hearing a little bit from each Tatiana and then Danielle about their respective districts. And then we're going to discuss some of the things that have stand out to them, their transitions, the things they've learned. And it'll be a back and forth in which both of them will be talking about their experiences at the same time today. So a fantastic panel experience today. So we're going to start off with Tatiana. And Tatiana, tell us a little bit about Cabrillo Community College District for the users out there.
Well, Cabrillo College is located in our beautiful Aptos, California. We're on the Central Coast. We have about 12,000 students enrolled, and I've had the pleasure of being both a staff member and a student here, so I know that it's a great experience.
Well, that's fantastic. That's great. Well, good history there for you then. Well, a wonderful area there, and I have to say that in the short time, in only a few years that you all have been using BoardDocs, you guys have done an amazing job mastering the solution. So it's been fantastic to see. Well, fantastic. Danielle, tell us a little bit about Kern Community College District.
Well, Kern Community College District is located in Bakersfield, California, just smack in the center of California, Central Valley. And our district is one of the largest in regards to square miles. We cover 5 counties to include Kern, Inyo, Mono, part of San Bernardino, and Tulare County, servicing our students at fall's head count. We're right about 32,000 district-wide. So Saracoso Community College, Porterville College, and our largest campus at Bakersfield College are the 3 parts that make up our district. And we are a public community college with a 7-member board and 1 student representative.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. It's a very large district. And again, we call Danielle a super user as well as she knows BoardDocs. Well, let's talk about each of your journeys and how you ended up with BoardDocs. Tatiana, maybe you can share what was going on in Cabrillo that eventually led you to moving on or looking up BoardDocs and moving over to BoardDocs.
Sure. We used to produce a board agenda, we call it a board book, every month, and it would range anywhere from 100 to 200 pages, and we would print copies for about 80 individuals. That would include not only our board, but the managers who would attend and some student reps and the deans, and it was really quite a production. One of the challenges that we faced is that at the last minute, there are often changes on the board agenda, and if you wanted to move the order of items, it was really labor intensive to renumber and reorder that in the paper system. So that required a lot of staff time and a lot of angst on our part. It was really very stressful to do it. even though it was a really simple request. Could we just switch the order of something? So as we were working with the Community College League on our board policy updates, we learned that they were using BoardDocs, and we got to learn how much easier that part of it would be for us. And that's when we decided to move over to BoardDocs in January of 2014.
Great. And I know since then you've moved on to BoardDocs Pro Plus in September of 2017. A lot of times I think you have some folks on the call right now that are probably looking at BoardDocs, and the questions they might have is, was it very easy to get your board to approve this? Was there backing behind the executive folks there in order to move forward with this?
Well, I think it was a very challenging process because people come to technology from a variety of different backgrounds. And I don't think that everybody understood how challenging the paper process was, nor how the technology solution would play out. There's a variety of literacy. So I'd say that it was something that was spearheaded by our president, and it was championed in that way. And then the staff was really encouraged when we saw how easy it was to use.
Wonderful. We do see that the more people involved, the better chance you have of bringing on a technology like this. So, well, great. Well, thanks for sharing that piece. So the journey continues. You end up choosing BoardDocs. You obviously have gone from Pro to Pro Plus. I think at this point it might be a great opportunity to show the folks, some of the things that you're working with. Take us through the first bullet there with the governance committee.
Okay, so we started out with just having our board meetings in BoardDocs, and after we started using it for a while, our team of super publishers were talking about our experience, and we thought, well, could we apply this to some of our shared governance committees or participatory governance committees? And we thought that was a good idea, so we kind of loaded that voluntarily. People started using it as they felt more comfortable with the technology. And I personally started working with my facilities planning committee, my administrative services council, anything that I could move over to BoardDocs, I did. And other committees started doing that as well. So basically all across the college, we started using BoardDocs for our committee work. That meant that everybody could be paperless, and it also gave us a chance to include attachments with the board agenda, which allowed people to view the materials ahead of time and be more prepared for the meetings.
Now, Tatiana, I'm going to go ahead and give you screen controls so you can actually take us through some of this. I know you're going to be talking about working through items and approval trees, so we'll go ahead and give you screen controls, and you can show us on your BoardDocs site what you're talking about.
Okay, so let's see here. I'll move this aside. So I have chosen a meeting of our board meeting just last May, and this is one of our consent items. It's our quarterly financial status report. And what's nice about this is that we've linked it to our board goals, and then we've also, and our strategic plan goals. So that's two different sets of goals here. Number one is a board goal, number 4 and 5 are strategic plan goals. And at the bottom here, you'll see our approval tree. It was submitted by my colleague on April 18th, and it was approved and was moved on and approved until it received final approval. Now, this all happened to have happened on the same day. But in other meetings that we've had, we have had things done ahead of time. So in this example, it's not much ahead of time, but you can see, again, the approval trees. And then I have a little better example here. So I'm now working in the draft meetings section, which allows me to load agenda items on any draft meetings that I've created. And here on my facilities planning committee meeting in September, if we look at my approval tree, as soon as we catch up here, I've clicked a little bit ahead.
And while you're taking
We'll
us,
see that on the bottom, this item was submitted in February, and we were trying to decide on which agenda will actually talk about this item. So it's now been approved in April, but it's slotted to be talked about in September.
that's great. And so Tatiana, so not only are you able to work in real time on agenda items, but you're showing here that you're able to prep far in advance and really
That's
make
right.
things more efficient for the greater group that's working on this.
That's right.
That's great. And now workflow. So again, BoardDocs Pro comes with workflow. Almost two-thirds of our clients out there use workflow. Tell us a little bit about how, the importance of workflow to involve other people to submit items. How is that things made? How has that made more things more efficient for you?
Well, it's really been championed by our publishing team because it delegates responsibility to all the different users in the various components. So we submit things through our administrative component. Instructions submits their board items and college planning council items. Student services is able to submit their own items. And you decide on what the approval authority is in each case. And we've created those approval trees that are pretty much customized to each user. And once you submit them, they appear on the agenda. And Ronette in our president's office, who coordinates all of this material, she can see as soon as you've submitted an agenda item where it is in the approval process.
Absolutely.
The other thing that we really like about approval trees is when we did a paper board book, we had a wet signature. We actually had our vice presidents signing off on each board item. And if you made a change, you'd have to get their signature again. Well, since we no longer have wet signatures, the auditors were looking for where's the approval for one or another financial document. So now we have this approval tree which shows the administrator's approval.
That's great. There's the audit history below there, right? I mean, that's an amazing piece of BoardDocs is that there's accountability to show who has done what and when and by who, and the ability to route back to another approver, to reject and go
Right.
back to the submitter, and then of course the ability to force approve anything, which puts control in your hands as well over the whole process.
Right. If you haven't seen it, it's a little magic wand, and I love having a magic wand.
Let's, if you could you click on that maybe? Maybe you can just show the folks what that looks like if you're able to. And while Tatiana's going through this, uh, Danielle, I know you're going to be talking more about the goal tracking, but anything to add when it comes to approval trees and how you're using the approval process at Kern?
Well, to piggyback off of what Tatiana said, I mean, we're exercising the same privileges through the approval process. One thing that I would probably add that adds a kind of a bonus to having that approval process is that a lot of times when you have campuses, especially with ours being a multi-college and being so widespread, interoffice mail just isn't practical anymore. You know, that is time consuming when you're kind of needing things to move faster if you have only one board meeting a month. So what this allows also for the administrators is not only what Tatiana discussed, an absolute, a kind of an accountability, if you will, of seeing who's doing what when they're doing it in real time. But in the event somebody's on vacation or, God forbid, somebody's out sick and they're unable to move it forward, those administrators in charge now are empowered to say, you know, everybody looked at it, but let's go ahead and not have this hold up the process. Let's get it moved forward. And they have that ability with that wand that Tatiana's hovering over right now on her screen. So that in itself still allows people like the chancellor and vice chancellors ultimate control over making sure the board sees what they need to see at the time that they do.
That's great, great insight. So Tatiana, I know you went into an item here. You have a few different controls up there. You're hovering over force approval. You also have the ability to route to a previous approver and to reject. So tell us about the force approval button. When do you usually see a use case for that?
Well, we try not to force approval. It's really not our style. We'd like to be able to give people a chance to work on their items plenty ahead of time. So as a support staff member, if I know that something needs to go on an agenda, even if we're not sure which agenda, I just load it on somewhere. And then I know I can easily change what meeting it goes to by clicking on any of the meetings that I have preloaded in my draft meetings section. Once I've chosen the meeting and I submit it for approval, hopefully I know enough about the administrator's schedule that I've given them enough time to work on it. If there's some circumstance that warrants forcing approval, we'll do that. Let's say the administrator is off-site and they needed access to something on the campus network for whatever reason, they weren't able to locate that, and they said, go ahead and just give approval. That might be a case, but I certainly try to avoid forcing approval whenever possible.
Absolutely, and also you have the ability to route back to another approver. So it's a great collaboration tool. And then within the actual rich text editor, you have track changes capability. So a lot of folks are used to working in Microsoft Word, where you have to download. You're in Microsoft Word, you're sending it back. You're not sure what version you're on. If you would like to use Microsoft Word, you certainly can. But a lot of our users actually stay within the system because you can build templates and you can track changes within the system as well. Right there, exactly, with your public content area. So so just a few more food for thought for folks out there as they're looking at the workflow piece.
Yep.
Great, excellent. And then anytime Tatiana and Danielle, as you are going through an upcoming agenda or the current agenda, it's real easy for you to know what's in workflow, correct? Because you just scroll through the agenda to the left and it highlights. Can you talk about the visual there?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Danielle, did you want to say something?
I was just going to say that with the screen, as Tom is demonstrating on the left-hand side, not only can you scroll through the agenda to see what's on there at any time, Tom, you can also collapse if there's something that needs to be moved into a different section, and just be able to grab that item and drag it up or drag it down to the appropriate place, just in case someone put it in the wrong section of the agenda. So I think that's a really cool feature, that you don't have to go back out and put it in someplace else, that those super publishers can fix it so that it's in the proper order that it should be. Just wanted to point that out. And then it also populates to the left as you highlight an item that you're on, so that you can read it on the main screen to the right to make sure that there aren't any typographical or grammatical errors on there as well. So that's a pretty cool feature as well.
Fantastic. Great information by you both. Really appreciate that. Well, so as we move on, we talked about approval trees, and hopefully the attendees see that, there's, when you think about board management or board portals, you think about creating the agenda first and foremost. And the system provides that capability, the drag and drops we've talked about, the ability to edit with keeping the agenda to the left, always keeping it in view. But also the features like approval trees, which add to efficiency. The features like many of you have probably already touched, like policy. CCLC, if you need your policy, you use BoardDocs already because you go to CCLC to grab that policy information. Now it can be tied in through the board portal. And the other piece I know, Tatiana, you wanted to discuss here is the new strategic plan. And then we'll transition to Danielle on goals. Talk to us about the strategic plan and how you use BoardDocs, or how you plan to use BoardDocs for that.
Yeah, we haven't done a lot of work on this yet because we're just developing a new strategic plan now. We just got a new president. Matt Wetstein came on board in February, and we are just ending our current strategic plan, and we'll be starting a new one next year. So, but Tom, if you don't mind, I wanted to back up just for a second.
Sure.
As you can see here in the background area of our public content, we've got our board policies and procedures linked here in our actual board item. So that was one of the pluses that we had when we were looking at adopting BoardDocs, is that not only did it have the board agenda advantages that we've already talked about, but it also gave us a chance to house our policies and procedures. And now we're linking those policies and procedures to our actual board items, so that we're demonstrating the why we do what we do in the actual board item.
Wow, that is great. That's efficient. It keeps everything in one location, very easy to see. And I'm sure that helps with accreditation when you get into audit season a little bit too, when you're looking back
Well,
on things.
that's what we're hoping for. And it's also helping to educate staff, because board policies and procedures have been something that we're kind of with the executive leadership, I'd say, and now we're learning more about them, and we're updating them on a regular basis in an accreditation cycle, and we're trying to learn more about which apply to what we do.
Great use of the system. It's just so multifunctional and efficiency there too. Danielle, anything to add to that?
Well, we're definitely getting ready to move into there, and so where Tatiana is starting off, building that kind of robust system where you just kind of have that one-stop shop that I'll be talking about shortly here. That goal tracking can become a valuable tool, not only for the board members, but think beyond the board members, which is where we're at. We're looking at total transparency. We're looking at reducing the number of public record requests that we have, because we've integrated all of our information into this one cloud-based system. So there's no limitation at how much we can expand it right now. And as we grow with it, BoardDocs is growing with us as well, making the necessary changes that we need to be able to get that information in front of our board members faster. That makes them more knowledgeable about the subject matters that they're discussing with their constituency groups that they represent, as well as the constituency groups internally. There's a lot of times you have a lot of faculty, staff, and students who don't know what's available out there, or how we govern, or how we have institutional effectiveness. BoardDocs is now becoming more of that tool to be able to get all of those answers in one place, that get those questions answered without necessarily having to call someone.
That's great, fantastic info. And Tatiana, I know you've been kind of showing us a few things. You showed us policy and procedure. You're in the library now. Before we transition over to Danielle, tell us about how you're using the library.
Well, we started using the library when we were on the entry level of BoardDocs, wherever we entered it. Pro, I guess it was BoardDocs Pro. And so we found that what we could do to help, for example, our committee members know how to find their meetings, is that we used this kind of a list to say, here are our meetings and agendas, and here's the annual reports, and here is the membership, here's your charge, the committee charge, and then here we go. And then here's the website to find that actual committee. Now, since then, we've had an upgrade. So we have this, let's see if I can reach it. I don't think I can do it behind this little menu here, but if you click on, yes, here we go. Now we have, each committee has its separate like little universe. So everything having to do with the facilities planning committee is all in one location. Does that make sense?
It does, and just so everyone knows, most all of our users out there are using Plus and Pro Plus.
Okay.
And the reason why is for exactly what you showed, to have separate and confidential meeting bodies. With so much information out there, you want to make sure that in the draft mode, that only the committees that need to see the information are present to it. And you as a super publisher, and Danielle as a super publisher, you have access to everything. But you want to make sure that some of the team only has access to what they need to see in that draft time. Plus, it helps when it comes to accreditation for the way that you're building reports and looking up information come audit season as well. Am I correct?
That's right. Yeah. So some of the information in our library is now duplicative, and we'll be cleaning that up. But we did begin by loading, let's see if I can reach down here, to master plans. So we initially put links to all of the various master plans in one place.
That's great. So again, finding that information quick and easy. It's now all searchable, right? Everything's searchable at this
Right.
point. Well, that's great. Great use of the system again for the attendees. Not only will it give you the power for the agenda tool and the efficiency you need there, but also gives you so many other tools that you might not have thought about that will help with searchability, accreditation, and auditing and reporting as well. Fantastic, Tatiana. Lots of great info. Anything else before we pass the baton over to Danielle?
No, let's hear from Danielle.
Yeah, that's great. Great interaction by you both. And Danielle, we're going to go ahead and give you screen controls, as I know you're going to talk about some of the goal tracking and that component and how that's been helpful with successful accreditation.
Absolutely, thank you. Hopefully you all can see my screen right
We
now.
can, absolutely.
Okay. Well, one of the great things, and then I'll move the panel over so that everyone can see. On our main feature page, for those of you who are already users and those potentially who can be users, your feature page can have the things that just stand out every time someone logs into your site. And so what our board wanted to do was to make sure the things that are monitorable, the things that they're going to be watching, to make sure that they kind of keep it at the forefront of their thought process, are the documents that are going to have the biggest impact coming up this year, for sure. So one of them is our board goals that you can see, and BoardDocs has a new tool that's available that allows you to track your goals to determine how you're meeting those goals and achieving those goals. And I'll click on one in particular, student success. And as you can see, the goal is set along with the measurements and the objectives in meeting that goal. So we can track the progress as our board has meetings, conferences, board development opportunities, items that are added to the agenda. And as you can see, that goal process tracks from back in 17 when their goal started to today's date. So as we take action on certain items on our agenda, we can tie those the same way that Tatiana showed you earlier to an agenda item that speaks to that particular goal that the board is meeting. This also serves as evidence during our upcoming accreditation site visit that we'll have shortly here in the fall. This has a robust area to meet these goals set by not just the board, but what are the colleges contributing that also speak to that goal being met? It's kind of a, as I always use the term for BoardDocs, a one-stop shop. It allows you to get all of that evidence and information in one area, so when the site team comes, they don't have to dig for anything. It's all there available for you. And if I take you back to our featured page, the documents that I have in front of you are the eligibility requirements for meeting those standards. So those standards are also there in front of our board that speak to the goal tracking that they're utilizing. This helps them keep in front of them why we do what we do, when we're doing what we do, how we do what we do. So this is kind of a tool or a guide for them to make sure, are we really meeting the goal? Is this really tying into the accreditation standards that are set for us? And this is an easy way for them to make sure and monitor that that's what's happening.
So Danielle, when you first came on with BoardDocs, obviously you were looking at it for a host of different reasons, but did you ever dream that the goal tracking would help you in the way that it has?
Absolutely not. I got excited. You would have thought that, I had stock in BoardDocs. It turns out to make this so easy for not only our board to navigate, even if you had a board member that wasn't as tech savvy, this makes this so interactive and so easy to not have to be on the campus every day or guess or wait for a report from a chancellor or a president or a dean. they know, they can see in real time, are we doing what we said we're going to do for our community? That tool here is helping us do that better. And the community doesn't have to wait for a board meeting to determine, hey, are they spending our money wisely? Are they meeting the goals that they said they were going to meet and addressing their mission and their strategic plans? They can pull this up anytime from anywhere with Wi-Fi connectability. It is that simple.
Yeah, that's great. And I know when we were doing our practice run for this, Tatiana, you alluded to that this is something you're moving towards. This really kind of opened your eyes, and you got excited as well on what you could be doing with the goal tracking.
Oh, absolutely. Danielle has done a marvelous job, and we look forward to learning from her.
Absolutely. And again, for everyone out there to know, here's a beautiful part of the BoardDocs experience and the customer support. This is a piece of the feature set that Cabrillo is looking to implement even further. Well, with BoardDocs, all Tatiana has to do is call in or send a quick email. She'll get set up with our customer support folks, our remote trainer, and they will train her free of charge to get her going with goal tracking. So many other vendors will charge you for these types of things. We do it free of charge to say, hey, we want you using the solution to the best of your ability, and we'll do that at no charge. So great, Danielle.
And one of the great things too, there are people who still like paper. They haven't become completely paper intolerant, and that's okay because this feature with the goal tracking with the print button, by hitting the print, it will allow you to print off that particular set of goals that you're meeting if you wanted to share that item and send it out with somebody else, or track the report as a whole and actually create that goal progress report. So it kind of it can be a tool not only for the board looking to see that the colleges are doing what they need to do, but also for those who are within the colleges to make sure we're all doing what we need to do. Kind of not necessarily policing each other, but definitely an opportunity to make sure that we never lose sight of why we do what we're doing.
That's
So
great.
that is definitely one of the high features of the goals tracking, and underneath a meeting, so that you can see the same way that Tatiana has. If we have an item that, case in point, a first reading on a board policy, we have the ability to add those goals that we think are tracking to that particular policy. So everything ties back to one another. And we can also manage and track who's approving what and when as well.
That's a nice feature just to tie in the agenda to the goals. So no matter if you're on the goals or on the agenda, you can see and be able to click back and see that nice little piece that tells you what the title was, shows you the action, the result, and it gives you a good snapshot of what you're looking for. And then you can easily print that as well. So whether you want to send that as a link during your auditing or print it out, it's easily accessible. And then also, I think you said it best earlier, Danielle, is that you're trying to limit the number of phone calls that are coming in and the transactions that are coming in via communication, so that it's even more transparent, easier for people to find. Even the most non-technical people can find their way around BoardDocs, whether it's public, board members, or staff.
Absolutely. There's various, throughout the state, people who need to receive a lot of this documentation in real time. One of those features ends up being during a meeting when you're taking a vote on a particular grant or an agreement that needs to get to the state right away. Once the meeting is happening in real time, the person can refresh their screen and capture the board's vote on an item and be able to print that or even PDF it and just send it off electronically. So now you're talking about a level of efficiency that's increasing with productivity on the college campuses as well as the district office. You don't have that inter-office snail mail where you're waiting 3 weeks to get a response for something. You can actually get same-day results utilizing these features.
Absolutely, that's great. Now I know you also wanted to share with us, Danielle, the search functionality, some of the robust and simplistic pieces of search in the agenda tools.
Absolutely. In our search feature, there's a little hourglass at the top of your bar there next to your login. And when you click the search feature, the blue screen pops up and it gives you a couple of options. If you'll notice on my screen, I have meetings, policies, library, minutes, and include attachments already checked. When those are checked in the blue, they're searching internally into your system to determine where you can find something. On that last option, which is meta, that allows you to search everyone on the outside of you. So it's kind of like a community of shared documents and resources that one can have. So with the internal documents, say you're looking for a previous meeting, auditors are here, you're trying to remember when the board approved the last triple SP agreement that they made, you can just simply type triple SP, and anything that I have checked, it's going to find it and tell you at the top how many results are found. So there's 131 results found. Well, say I want to narrow my search. I want it to be a meeting. I know it's not in policy, so I'll uncheck policy. It's not in my library. It's going to be in one of the active meetings. And I don't want to include the minutes. I just want to see which meeting and maybe the attachment for the agreement. And as you can see, it reduced the searches found and puts them in chronological order in regards to attachments and agenda items. So this can make it easier to search your entire system and find out where an item is. And then once you do, you click on it, it's going to pull up that item for you. And you're saying, okay, that's exactly it. That's the one. You navigate to that item, and it takes you right to that meeting. So it takes all the guesswork out of trying to figure out which meeting we last had that discussion at. And vice versa, if you check the meta and it'll uncheck everything internally, it's going to search to see if are there any other boards out there that have triple SP that may or may not have taken any action on those items. And I think, Tom, you guys are over 2,000 users strong?
Close to 3,000 now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have the ability to look at 3,000 other users and see what they're doing. And other community college districts that may be doing the same thing that we are. Maybe we don't have the verbiage for a new item or a new contract, and we want to know how to write it. This empowers all of the administrators who use BoardDocs, who enter information in, to not have to guess. They can kind of see what other colleges are doing and figure out that, okay, this is something that we can use. Maybe this is how we need to do it and reword it and retool it, but not necessarily have to reinvent the wheel.
Absolutely. It's a great point, and knowing that you don't have to go out to Google, or you can easily just go and click meta search and find anything that pertains to CCLC, anything that pertains to its members, at least for the 50% plus that use BoardDocs, and then anything outside of California as well is great information. And the cool thing here is, say for example, just click on any of these items. It also has attachments. It can include attachments as well. If you also have the ability to navigate there too if it's connected. So it's a really nice system that's all interconnected when it comes to BoardDocs and your search capabilities as well. And I see Sarah College in there, Coast Community College, so some Yuba Community College. So a lot of familiar districts in there that you guys would be able to grab information from.
And one of those benefits is that we're the uniqueness of California, where we're a highly regulated state. If they're submitting it, you know that more than likely they're Brown Act compliant. Mm-hmm. So that can give you also that confidence to utilize some of our information as we share with one another how we're moving our items forward for approval by the board.
That's fantastic. Great. Well, wonderful. Well, I know we're coming up on time Tatiana, Danielle, anything else to add from what we were just showing here on goal tracking, strategic plans, and search?
I'm just in awe of what Danielle has done. That's just fabulous.
Well, I want to say that Tatiana, I think a lot of times we all come together from the different community colleges and we share ideas with our board members, and definitely having a board like mine that trusted my ability to be able to take them into a paperless process is part of that. You definitely want to make sure that they have that ability to do that for you. Not always is it easy to go from a paper process, because a lot of times the board, they're not involved with the back end and that kind of volume that it takes, not only with time, with money. I showed our board how much money they save by moving to BoardDocs versus the paper process that we were doing. In the first year, we cut our budget by about $100,000 in all the moving pieces that contributed to putting together board packets for over 90 people, to include the media as well.
Wow.
So in a way, with the cost savings that they had just in the first year, I haven't even touched that in the almost 7 years that we've been doing BoardDocs now. So there's always a cost saving, there's the time saving, and then once they get used to using it, that instantaneous, to me, empowerment that they have by having that knowledge in front of them whenever they choose to have it, to me speaks volumes for them as a board utilizing it. We get the bonus of them using it by cutting down our workload, our stress, by getting these items together. And as Tatiana shared earlier, when you have to make a last-minute change, Tatiana knows as well as I do, I get excited and I say, sure, not a problem. And I really mean not a problem, because I can go in here in real time, change something, even if they're having to pull something during a meeting, and make those changes in real time, following Brown Act compliance. We can do those things and not have the problems that we would have if it was a paper process, especially if you were adding, if the public wanted to add something that fell within those guidelines.
Great information. Well,
That's great.
there's a few questions that have come up right now. So why don't we go ahead and answer some of those. The first question is, do most of your customers in Community College League use Plus or Pro? So just to give a distinction, there's BoardDocs LT and there's BoardDocs Pro. I would say that there's probably about 98% of the CCLC members use Pro Plus. There's a few that use Pro, and then a handful that might use, one or two that might use LT. To maximize the accreditation value, the goal tracking, we recommend Pro Plus for all CCLC members. That's what Cabrillo and Kern both have. Pro also will work if you feel as though you don't need it for as many committees. But again, the accreditation piece it's seen in full with the ability to allow other separate confidential meetings for your other committees and boards. So hopefully that answers that question. I know Danielle and Tatiana, you both upgraded recently to Plus. Maybe you can talk a little bit about how that has helped moving from Pro to Pro Plus.
Well, I can say for me, for Kern Community College District, by going to the Plus last year, it allowed for a uniformity. So our board isn't seeing, at least for our board right now, they are seeing consistency. So the agenda that they're used to looking at in the format that they're used to looking at, now they can see their committee meetings as well in that same format. So whether it's their finance and auditing, or their evaluation committee, or their legislation committee, all of it is outlined the same way. And so then they are allowed to move and navigate through the agenda a lot quicker because they're used to the format that they're seeing. We are expanding, as Tatiana has done as well, to other governing bodies, such as like Academic Senate. We want to go there next year with them to allow others to have that same opportunity. And not only can they see it on their side, but on our side, we can have multiple administrators control those different committees so that it empowers them to get their work done independently from the main governing body agenda. So you kind of have your key people who are running those meetings, and it's all kept in the same place. So that's been a huge blessing for us.
Fantastic. Tatiana, anything to add to your experience moving to Plus?
No, I think Danielle covered that really well. And we also covered the topic of security. Before, we listed all of our meetings under one chronological tab. Everything that occurred in 2017, whether it was a board meeting or a committee meeting, was in one place. Well, that meant that some of the publishers had access to information that perhaps needed to be more restricted. So by upgrading to the Plus level, now we have people have assigned authorization. I'm not sure what that's called, but they have privileges for the committees that they're assigned to. And so that's improved our security, and it's also improved the end user's experience because you just click on the tab of the committee that you're interested in.
Absolutely.
That's a great point. Security, and that's why so many people love Plus. And it just goes to the backbone of what BoardDocs is about. Our three big pillars are support, customer support, the best experience possible, a secure solution, which many times people aren't thinking about when they're looking at a board portal solution, and then of course innovation, coming out with the best and newest features like goal tracking and things we're working on in the future like action tracking as well. Great.
Absolutely.
Wow, this has been a wonderful webinar. We really appreciate your time, Tatiana, Danielle, again, for sharing with us. If any of the attendees have any further questions, on the screen right now you have email addresses for both CCLC, Tatiana, Danielle, and then of course Kristen Forsberg, who works with all of our CCLC customers and potential customers. If anyone would like a more personal demo at this point, please feel free to reach out to us, and we're more than happy to facilitate that for you. So again, I would love to thank CCLC for their partnership and for the tremendous job they do. And then Tatiana, Danielle, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for showcasing the amazing talents you have with this solution.
I would also like to add on there real quick, Tom, if you want to let people know that when the eGov Live event, which is your annual conference that you have,
absolutely,
it's such a great opportunity for people to get hands-on experience, kind of work in the system and try it out if they have a board that's kind of like on the verge, not sure if it's beneficial. Sometimes it's even good for the board members to definitely attend and kind of get an understanding of how the system works and how it can work for them. So it's a free, you're only paying for your travel to get there in the room, but I would say that it was a really beneficial tool for me to go to the eGov Live conference, to not have to pay for the conference and just pay for my hotel and travel and be able to experience it up close and personal. So that also helped as well.
Thank you for sharing that, Danielle. eGov Live, we're coming up on our 16th annual eGov Live conference this September 13th and 15th in Orlando, Florida. The accommodations will be at the JW Marriott in Orlando, and again, that's September 13th and through 15th. A great opportunity to be around peers, to be involved in sessions, to learn how to become more proficient at different features, and then to hear from speakers and thought leaders about where we're going with BoardDocs and being able to add to that community. And what our CEO, Ari Ioannidis, talks about is our community-led solution. We hear from you folks on what makes sense to continue to evolve it, and we add that to make the best product possible to fit your needs. So that's wonderful. Well, thank you, Danielle. Well, Tatiana, Danielle, thanks again. We sure do appreciate your time. Thanks to all the attendees for listening today. And again, a recording will be sent out soon. Until next time, you all have a wonderful day and take care.